Hi everybody, Poncianinho here again, starting another vlog. Today I'd like to talk about an experience that I had when I was a young boy. I was 12 years old. The reason why I want to talk to you about this experience as my first vlog really, it's because it was so powerful what happened to me as a capoeirista at that time, that to this day it resonates so much in my life, in my practice, in what I do, and I'm still searching and sometimes trying to understand what had happened and to explain as well, because now I can explain more. Now I understand a little bit more, looking through the eyes, through the lenses of a dancer, capoeirista, someone who has moved for all my life. I understand more what has happened. I have experienced that again, but for a child, it was very powerful indeed. So before the day that happened, I was just training capoeira. A lot of you know my story. I started very young and I was just training as a child. You have phase where you want to do capoeira, where you don't want to practice, of course. Perhaps by the time I got to that day, by the time I got to 12, there were more times where I actually did not want to practice for obvious reasons. You know, as a child, you want to do other things, or you don't want to do anything, do you? You want to spend time in your garden, playing games or whatever. You don't want sometimes have the discipline. I wasn't keen on the discipline of capoeira, even though as a young child I remember sort of being conditioned to that, and then just following the program, just going with the flow, really, as we speak. So I was just practicing capoeira, but I was not conscious, and that's a really key, something important about this, is that I was not conscious of what I was doing. I wasn't aware of being a capoeirista. I just went to class. I was taken to class. I just went to class. So we were in a very beautiful town called Paraty. If you ever have the chance to go to Brazil and see this place, it's a very beautiful town. It's very near my house. It's like a colonial town, really old-fashioned, and it's got the sea. It's very beautiful. And we were there with the group, like a holiday. My father went there to see some of his capoeira friends, some masters of capoeira. And in the last day, we're all waiting for everybody to come back. We're all meeting in this square. And we're just waiting for everybody to meet so we could get on a coach and go back to Guaratinguetá. And then, as you do, we started the roda. Capoeira roda started. And now I think back, it was it's like a scene out of a film, out of a Brazilian tropical paradise film. Because it was an afternoon, so it was like the sun was just starting to set, and we had palm trees, and it was beautiful. And obviously now, not being in Brazil, having that nostalgia and nostalgic feelings to Brazil, I remember more clear. Then when I was there, I was just there. So it was beautiful, and the roda started, and people were playing capoeira, and me as a young boy, I was just there. I remember I had like a sailor's outfit, a stripy t-shirt, a shorts, and a little hat like this. Always liked hats like that. I was a bit like an old man in a child. Anyway, so the roda began, and at some point, Mestre José Antonio said for me to go and play. And I must have been just sitting there, and then I just jumped into the roda. And then something really magical happened. It was so intense that it's difficult for me to describe. But I felt like I was in trance. Now I can describe as that, of course. It was like a drunk-like state of being in trance. And I started to play capoeira like I'd never played before. I think about this so much now, because I remember the feelings that I had. It was like time stop. That's the one feeling, like I could definitely remember the timing stop. And it's like, really is like I could see myself from outside the game. Now, I know that sounds a little bit far and a little bit crazy, but if I had to describe, and this is not something I'm just describing now and thinking now, as I said, for many years I experienced that. Since the day that happened, that changed the course of my life, actually changed the course of my career, because funny enough, after that, I started to get lots of opportunities in my life. I must have carried that vibe, that energy of what happened was in my body. Thank goodness that happened. But I'll come back to the point of why I think that happened, which is why I think also why this is important for you and for us, and it's not just a story about me or something amazing that happened to me. So I think the most important thing of this is, why do I think that happened? Nevertheless, what did happen was I felt extremely powerful, and I felt trance-like, and I remember I could hear the voices of people. I could hear the singing like I've never heard before. It's like all my senses suddenly became sharp. And I remember listening to my father saying to his wife at the time, I remember he saying, look at Poncianinho, what is happening? It was even that reaction. I remember him saying, what is happening? And I remember very clearly that one thing that I was doing some really fast kicks as well. It was like I had the green light to do whatever I wanted. It was like, just do what you want to do. Just go for it. It was that kind of feeling. I could stay here and talk to you more about that, because that's a memory that I want to, it feels nice to talk about. However, coming back to the point of why I think this is interesting and important, is that it comes back down to one simple fact. Again, I think it's to do with practice. I was practicing capoeira regularly, but I was not conscious. But it was in my body. The experiences was in my body. I also think it's important to mention that I remember being very tired before the roda. You know, you're playing in the sea, you're swimming all day. As a child, you don't stop, you're running about, you're having fun. And I remember by the time of the afternoon, I remember feeling a little bit tired. And I think that was actually quite important for me to sort of break the runner's wall, to go beyond what I was feeling. In capoeira has that. How many times you guys been in a situation where you are tired, you have had a long roda, or even a practice, you've been training for a long time, or when you go on a capoeira holiday and you train in the morning, you train in the afternoon, or you have a roda and then you go out for dinner, for drinks, and then another roda starts and you start playing again. And we find this way to create energy that sometimes really surprise us. Well, one thing to say about that is that we always have more energy to do the things that we need to do. We have more energy than we think we have. So sometimes it's finding the mechanisms that can make us go on for further. So what is it? Of course, where there is an emergency, we get the adrenaline and we come up again, we wake up again. And how do we find that in the days where we need to go and practice and we need to find? Well, we do that with motives, things that will motivate us. A good capoeira song, a video of capoeira. I do think videos are really important now. They're becoming more important because in the past they had also historical importance of archive, and now in the future what we're doing now will become an archive, but it will also inspire us. I have always been very inspired by some capoeira videos. In my time, of course, it was VHS. We didn't have the internet, but now you can go on YouTube and you can see some really good capoeira that inspires you. It doesn't just inspire you to do movements, but you can see videos some videos of capoeira on the internet from the past, they also give you that nostalgic feeling. They are the vintage videos of capoeira that give you that feeling, what was going on at that time. So I think that experience provided me with, if not an explanation, provided me with a beginning of something. The understanding that if you practice long enough, even when you're not conscious about your practice, even when you're just doing, one day capoeira takes, using the metaphor, capoeira will take your body, as if we say the spirit of capoeira enters your body. And you experience something like this, also give you a compass to think, I want to experience that again. What was that? Well, as I said, it's not easy to explain. If I could explain and give you a formula of what happened to me that day, that would be too easy and it wouldn't be true. We all be experiencing there every day. We don't. But I know some things for sure. I know that it was the practice, as I mentioned, the idea of freedom, of just doing something, and the idea of not being conscious. How interesting is that? Because we want to come to a point where we can do that conscious and then go back into not being conscious, because then you are applying the techniques that you learn, you are applying the experiences that you have. You will need your conscious mind to gather information and to apply the techniques and the experiences that you're having. However, it comes to a point in your career where these experiences, they combine, they are in your mind, they are in your body, they are part of your nervous system, and sometimes they come out without you having to consciously initiate them. And sometimes it's important to switch off from the conscious mind when you play capoeira. I have practiced for so long, and I know the value of practicing consciously. That is enormously powerful. And I even know great capoeira masters who I know, I can see sometimes they were playing. These are like renowned names of like legends of capoeira. And I know sometimes when they are playing, they are practicing something that they are, an idea that they've got now, a way to catch someone, a new way to do a cabeçada, and I can see they're being conscious about. But I also can tell when they are not so conscious, and when they are using this other force, this other power, which is to just be in a roda, to just let the music take you further. And then what happens when two capoeiristas are like that? Will create a lot of magical experiences. And even beyond all of this, the purpose of that is not just to come out of the roda to say, oh, I played really good. It's not that, because it's not necessarily about good movements. It can be as well. If that's in your body, you can do that as well. It depends on your skill, but it's about what you feel after. It's about that feeling of pure joy and empowered. You feel empowered, but the freedom that I had in my body to move with speed and to not be thinking about judging or being judged by anybody, that was definitely an experience that has set something really powerful in my heart. Okay, so I wanted to share this with you guys. I already have many notes on what to talk about. I had a class yesterday at the place where I came out with lots of notes about fundamentos. For example, yesterday we were talking about capoeira trends, why capoeira trends, the good sides and the bad sides of capoeira trends. And we can find that sometimes in history you find different trends in different pockets of Brazil, and some trends become quite general for everybody because of the internet and so on. We had a really interesting conversation about that, and I'd like to share some of that with you as well. So I'm making some notes, and I'll keep coming back with some more. I would like this to be an experiment as well, that we can, that I can just offload information, and sometimes hopefully there'll be some great hits where it really matters to you. Really, you could go to a class tonight and apply some of that and actually feel that was great, that was important for me. Others may come back later to you, and others may just be a story that I share. Okay, so guys, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed me sharing a little bit of my story with you. Okay, um abraço, axé, tchau, tchau.